What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Bleed Los podcast. Garna Asada. Team USA has made it to the WBC finals. Dodger Stadium has a new name for its field, and we finally know who our opening day starter will be. All that and more coming up next. Welcome back and thank you for joining us. We got the squad in the house tonight. Our buddy Cody is joining Anthony and myself as your hosts, with producer Roger behind the scenes at Camelback Ranch. Before we get into everything, we want to tell you about DodgersBeat.com. Stay up to date with all the latest coverage of the Los Angeles Dodgers. It is your one-stop for articles, interviews, contests, merch, and more. Never miss a beat and check out DodgersBeat.com. Okay, fellas, we are 10 days away from opening day. How are we, Anthony? Start with you.
I'm doing good. Finally, kind of got readjusted to life post vacation. Those like few days after a vacation are kind of awkward because you really don't know what your routine is like. You're kind of still trying to feel stuff out. I'm no longer upset after Mexico's humiliating elimination by Team Italy. I feel like a lot of teams in this tournament took Italy lightly. I'm glad they're finally eliminated, so my hate watch is finally completed. I'm going to be excited for tomorrow's game. Hopefully, the U.S. pulls out a victory, and hopefully from there we can just get some good Dodger baseball in 10 days.
Oh my God, so excited. So yeah, Cody, it's been a hot minute since all three of us have been together. Have you been over on the East Coast?
Yeah, I know we've had to get the crew back together as we get ready for the regular season fast approaching. But honestly, feeling good, vibes are good. Haven't had a bad baseball memory in like 3 years, it feels like. And the United States is kind of keeping that streak going. Going all the way to the finals, and they're gonna face Venezuela, which we'll talk about later. But spring is in the air here on the East Coast. I can finally come out of my house. Seeing some 60-degree weather, so everything's looking up for us.
Yeah, so Venezuela it is. I was thinking Italy was going to be a team of destiny and take it all the way. So yeah, as we're filming this, that game just ended. We know who the matchup's going to be tomorrow night. So yeah, let's talk all about it because it almost didn't happen that way. Mark DeRosa almost put us in a little jam there, but ultimately it came out on top. We got to see a killer performance from Paul Skeens last night. Anthony, what were your thoughts on the game itself and just that crazy ending?
The game itself was actually what I envisioned Game 7 would be in any playoff scenario. It was tense, a lot of high drama, a lot of opportunities on both sides to kind of break the game open. I know the Dominican fans are probably complaining about the last pitch, but there's multiple scenarios in that game. I think they were all back to back to back, essentially, where they kind of had a chance to break it open. It just didn't. I love our guy, Will Smith, kind of caught David Bender gave him his flowers last night. Said he called a really great game. I think he deserves to be in that championship game tomorrow. I don't know if he's actually going to. I know they've kind of been alternating catchers and starts here, whether it's Raleigh or whether it's Smith. But I would kind of lean towards the guy who's played in big moments, has delivered in big moments, essentially in the clutch and stuff like that. So I would lean towards a Will Smith. But other than that, I felt like the game was very tight. Whoever the best team was going to be at the end of the night was the United States, and they deserved the victory. I know the pitch was bad. In retrospect, is a bad pitch, but the game wasn't decided on that single pitch. It was decided on various other moments throughout the entirety of the game.
Yeah, and Cody, by the next WBC, obviously the ABS will probably be fully in place. But yeah, what did you think of the game? Because it was keeping all of us on pins and needles.
Yeah, it was definitely kind of what I expected coming into it. I had the utmost confidence in the United States pitching to at least keep the Dominican Republic lineup at bay, and they kind of did that all game in a couple different ways. I think the pitching, Skeens was a little bit shaky, especially as the game went on. It seemed like they were on a lot of his fastball. They had the velocity down. His off speed just wasn't looking really sharp as usual. I mean, even the home run that Caminero hit, I honestly don't even know how he hit it out because it was a slider that was, up and away, and he kind of still pulled it for a home run. I didn't think it was going to get out, but other than that, that was the lone blemish. And credit to DeRosa with all the restrictions of the pitching staff that he has to deal with. He kind of pushed all the right buttons. What's a great way to kind of go against of what Paul Skeens was doing? Bring in a Submariner right-hander that doesn't max out at like 92 miles per hour. So I think that ended up working in their favor, got Juan Soto to ground out into the double play. And it was really just up to clutch hitting from the young hitters. Roman Anthony does it again, and Gunnar Henderson, who everybody was clamoring to get into the lineup, one, because he had really good numbers against Severino, but two, he was hitting better than Alex Bregman, who really hasn't done much this WBC. Same thing with Cal Riley behind the plate. Everyone wanted Will Smith behind there as well. And, I had to try to put my Dodger bias aside, but I said, honestly, terms of what I want from somebody that's batting in the bottom half of the lineup, Will Smith has typically a better approach at the plate where a walk is as good as a hit for him, but he also has the ability, to sneak a home run or extra base hit. And David Bednar said it, like Anthony mentioned. He called a great game. I thought he had those Dominican hitters off balance all game, and it pretty much turned into a bullpen game in the second half of it, where you had to kind of weave and work your way around that lineup. And the United States pitching, they got the job done. That's kind of been the MO for the US right now, and that was kind of their bread and butter coming into this tournament. Like, hey, look, the US has pitching now. The offense, besides the games against Brazil and Great Britain, I tossed those out the window. I know they scored 16 plus runs or whatever, but you got dudes named no names that you never really heard of. It's different for the last two rounds, so credit to them. But I'm very excited for the final.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Yeah, we didn't really get to see something that I was like kind of back and forth. Do I want to see Kershaw pitch? Do I not? Ultimately, he's not going to be pitching in this round. But Anthony, is that kind of the way that we're going to remember him? Is obviously the World Series and our last big memory. Is that how it should have gone out for him?
Yeah, I think this was kind of just a courtesy thing. He said it himself prior. He's kind of just along for the ride. If needed, if his number was called, he was going to go out there and give him all 86 miles per hour. So for me, the lasting memory I have of him is kind of getting the biggest out of his career. It was getting, I think it was Nathan Lucas out at game three. Yeah, it was. For me, if he just did nothing else but sign autographs and kind of just chill out, which he was essentially doing, the shot of him sitting with his son as the DR taking BP is kind of like a final closure for me. Like, okay, he's at peace. He doesn't really want to do this anymore. And what else does he have left to prove at this point? For me, selfishly, I would have loved to seen him play in group play. I was kind of hoping he would have gone in there when I was at the games to kind of get one last look at him. But other than that, I have no other say for him. I feel like this is the final his final chapter has been written, and hopefully he goes out on top with a WBC title at the end here tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It's also fun kind of watching him have a little time with Paul Skeens and some of the other pitchers that we don't always get to root for from the other teams, in the dugout. And I felt like listening to Logan Webb, listening to Mason Miller and their interviews in the last couple weeks, they were talking about how they're going to spend time really just picking Kershaw's brains, spending time talking to him and really taking whatever they can get, because everyone knows at the end of the day, even if they were against the Dodgers, they knew the talent that Kershaw was his entire career. And they really, if I were a pitcher, I'd want to get up whatever I could from that. So it's lovely to see them. But the two boys that I really just enjoyed watching, of course, were Roman Anthony. You just brought that up a little while ago. And Bobby Witt Jr., Cody. I mean, is there any chance we could ever see him in Dodger blue one day? Totally.
Yeah, Bobby Witt, no, probably not. I think the Royals got him locked down for the foreseeable future, and good for them. A small market team kind of understanding a talent that they have, and they want to keep him for the long haul. Clearly is probably up there as being argued as the best shortstop in the game right now. Has kind of put everything together offensively, defensively, and speed. Very toolsy guy, and he's putting it on full display, especially on the defensive side, where he's kind of made a lot of spectacular plays, especially in the DR game earlier in the tournament as well. But they kind of were talking about it leading up to that last game against the DR, where they said, what, this is by the time the next WBC comes around, Alex Bregman's going to be in his late 30s. Aaron Judge is going to be 36, 37 years old. So you kind of have to start, handing it off. Like we already saw Mike Trout isn't in this round when he played in 2023 because of, injuries, age, and probably the insurance issues. And then, you got a lot of other stars that are on this roster that probably won't be, the best of the best at the time of the next WBC, or even hell, the 28 Olympics that are supposed to take place in LA, which it seems more and more likely every day that they're gonna eventually let the MLB players play in it. So you kind of have the passing of the torch, and Roman Anthony and Bobby Witt Jr. seem to be those two guys. And if you're not really involved in kind of all 30 teams, you probably are just now getting familiar with those two names, especially with Roman Anthony because he's a rookie and he came up in the second half last season, didn't play in the postseason because he had a back injury, I believe. So he's kind of on the map right now because of what he's done in just his limited playing time. And, what better guys could you ask at kind of take that torch, especially with the USA? They're three straight WBC final appearances. There looks like more and more stars are going to want to continue to play in this tournament. So I've always said if the U.S. always puts their best foot forward and had the best athletes want to play, whether it's basketball, baseball, if football becomes a universal sport across the world like the NFL is trying to get it to do, the USA is usually going to come out on top more often than not.
Yeah, no, I feel it. And it's just been such a joy watching WBC. And I've been noticing all the people across all social media that maybe are more casual baseball fans are like, oh my God, what is this tournament? Maybe they hadn't been following it for, several rounds. And I just think the growth of it is incredible. Anthony, we were trying to predict like who would be the final two or the final four. Are you kind of thinking after watching all of the rounds of this, like obviously Japan's not in it? A lot of people thought they were going to be. What are your thoughts on kind of the final two standing?
Well, I'm 0 for 2 because I picked Japan and the DR to be in the final. I did think the US would get to the semis. Uh, but other than that, I feel like baseball has been being played at an elite level that it's kind of hard to like be like, well, that team is kind of more deserving. I know Juan Soto had that quote where like, I think
Oh,
we showed the world who the best baseball team is. Last I checked, you have to win a game in order to show which team is the best baseball team available. But for me, I think with the U.S., it's exciting because I mentioned it when we came back from Houston. The guy that I came back most impressed with was Roman Anthony because he's a rookie and he doesn't look like he's a rookie. He looks like he belongs and he's been there for like 12, 13 years. He's very quiet, but he goes about his job like very professionally. So I kind of have him marked down as the guy that I want to watch going forward. And with Bobby Witt, I'm always impressed. Defensively, he's just a magician out there. There was times in the Mexico game where he saved innings from getting kind of out of control with his play, and then yesterday as well too. So I think those are the kind of ideal guys that you want going forward. And of course, the Paul Skeens as your top line ace kind of going forward. And it's kind of exciting because it gives guys who are probably starting their careers off like, wow, those guys are playing for Team USA. And like, if I am able to produce at an all-star level, maybe I get the call and replace an aging guy like a Bryce Harper, an aging guy like a Judge, and etc. I feel like every WBC cycle, or not even just WBC, like in soccer as well too, in the World Cup, you're trying to be the next star for your country, and a lot of these guys kind of solidify themselves during this tournament. Like, yeah, when they get the phone call for the Olympics or
yeah.
in 2029 for the next iteration of the WBC, Bobby Witt's name is probably going to be the first one called. Paul Skeens as well, and Roman Anthony, considering if they're all healthy and stuff, and no injuries is holding them back.
Yeah, it's watching them was such a treat and watching all the teams just like that, we got to see just the star power of this WBC was incredible. And it wasn't even all the stars in the MLB that got to be in this, and we still got to see such fantastic games and performances. But yeah, the Team Japan, of course, Shohei, Yoshi, they were there, and I was rooting for them. But at the end of the day, I kind of felt like their pitching was weaker than it was the last round for different reasons. Yoshi did his thing, but it was kind of becoming clear towards the end that there's teams that are just out there to take them down, just like, Bendigo when he was on the show, people are going to try to slay the dragon, and they did this time. Interesting point. I think you put up in our rundown, Cody, the manager saw that he had stepped down too. So, they're obviously, a team of high regard all in the baseball world, but, doesn't mean they're always going to win. And I think they've won 3 times. Is that correct, Cody? Already, Team Japan?
Yeah, they've won 3 times. They've
Mhm.
made it to the semifinal, I think, every time. I think,
Yeah,
if
every
not, or they haven't made it to the quarterfinal out of the quarterfinal, like, they've never been eliminated in that round, so
right, right.
this is the earliest they've ever lost. And I agree with you. The pitching, we kind of came into this saying, Yamamoto's like their guy, and then they really don't have anybody else. And then that bullpen is kind of what blew it against Venezuela kind of in late because, Otani did his job to start off the game, tying it back up. Yamamoto kind of faced, a little bit of struggles in the first 2 innings, but then ended up settling in anyway. And he was never going to go 5, 6, 7 innings, especially with a pitch count and probably whatever Dodgers restrictions were put on him. But yeah, it just seemed like everybody wanted the marquee matchup, the rematch between the U.S. and Japan. MLB probably wanted that, and that's why they set up the bracket the way they did, where there
Yeah.
was no situation where reseeding was going to happen, or if the U.S. and Japan were going to play before the final round. So still, I think it's a really good matchup that we're getting for the final. It's kind of something that we didn't really expect with Venezuela. It's the first time that they've made it this far before. And then even Italy, like we mentioned, like kind of Cinderella story. Nobody thought Italy was going to get out of pool play for the most part. And here they are. They were, just a couple runs away from making it all the way to the championship round. So it is an exciting tournament. I think we saw a lot of, flashy plays, fan interaction, all time high. I've seen more people talk about baseball than I've ever seen before. So I think that's good for not just the tournament, but the game as well. And, it's all steamrolling to whatever happens next year with the lockout. Hopefully that doesn't take too long, because I feel like baseball is in a really good spot. When Stephen A. Smith is talking about baseball on ESPN, I'm like, oh, we may got something going here.
Yeah, Anthony, yeah, like just kind of piggyback on what Cody was saying. I mean, because the momentum is so great right now. You have the highest attendance like numbers you've ever seen for the WBC, highest viewership numbers. I mean, kind of what do you see as the future is like kind of all of this momentum's building just in baseball in general, and the potential for the lockout coming later this year. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the WBC has succeeded in like it has more people's interest, and I think from just the experiences that a lot of people probably traveled to the WBC over going to spring training and probably came back with rave reviews. I know myself included.
Yeah.
So you probably are going to have a lot more people interested in traveling in the next version of it in 2029, depending what host cities you end up choosing. But again, baseball is such a funny way of like kind of shooting itself in the foot. I do think we're still trending towards lockout. Uh, I think the only thing that would save it is if like they agreed on something like under the table, but I don't think that's even going to happen either. But it just feels like the lockout is just going to happen. We're going to be locked out the entirety of basically the winter, and it's going to come down to like the start of spring training. All right, are we going to come to terms on something? Yes, no, and I think right now the players are saying like, nah, we're not doing a salary cap, or they're interested in the salary floor, but still. I don't see owners kind of agreeing to the salary floor, so it's just going to be a messy negotiation. Again, I'm never going to side with the owners. I'm going to side with the players. But I guess we'll wait to see. But hopefully, it's they see that this momentum's building and they have the chance to kind of continue it growing because you have the Olympics in 2028. And the worst thing that could happen is that they're not going to lock out all the way to 2028. But if you lose viewership and you lose momentum, the interest in the sport starting to slowly starts to fade away. You're going to keep the diehards like us, but like the young people that are watching now and they're seeing the clips of the DR exploding out of the dugout. Like they're seeing clips of Bobby Witt, they're seeing clips of Paul Skeens. They're going to lose interest immediately because you're not in the social media realm anymore. They're watching clips and stuff.
Yeah, no, I think that we're going to have an interesting end of the year, however it shakes out, and see kind of where it goes. But it's so cool to see Paul Skeens even smile. I think I saw him talk and smile more than I even have seen when he's with his girlfriend. So that's kind of cool to watch him and just, really to see these stars, come out of their shell a little bit. Like everyone was accusing them of not being enthusiastic enough. I think we saw a lot of enthusiasm in the last game. And I just love that. And one quote I love, just to kind of put a bow on the WBC, was from Aaron Judge yesterday. He said that when asked about kind of like the difference between playing in a World Series game versus a WBC style game, and he called it, quote, bigger and better in terms of the environment, fans, and kind of just the energy of the stadium. And it made me think of all these guys that we saw. I think it was like star power like crazy yesterday on the field. You have like Cy Young players, you have MVPs, you have Gold Gloves, Silver Sluggers, you have everything yesterday. Watching all that talent on the field, and many of those guys will never win a World Series, even though they probably deserve to. Just the way it's going to shake out for the next several years of their career, and it just made me think like this might be a chance for them tomorrow night to feel what it feels like to take a title. So I don't know, Cody, did you hear Judge when Judge said that I don't know if you can compare it to each their own, but what do you think is like kind of the WBC kind of feel like the bigger, better thing for them that may never win a World Series?
Yeah, I think I listened to the argument where a lot of these players, J Rod said it for the DR, saying he would rather win a WBC championship than a World Series, which, that's where I kind of hit back a little bit, where I kind of look at what, especially in today's environment, you have to play 30 plus spring training games. Then you got to play 162 regular season games. That's just to determine if you're good enough to make the postseason. And then you're kind of put into a kind of a tournament in itself as well in October with so many teams and so many, series that have to be played. Like we just saw what the Dodgers did. They had to go through the wild card, DS championship series, and then the World Series. And most of those series, went the distance or, at least four games. So it's hard, especially when, you don't have a star studded lineup top to bottom like you would in a WBC, where you look at the DR's lineup, you mentioned you're looking at MVPs, Gold Glovers, Silver Sluggers. Honestly, the one thing I do agree from yesterday's game is that it's probably the most collective talent you'll probably ever see on a baseball field between the US's lineup and their roster and the Dominican Republic's roster, especially in their lineup as well. And pretty much turned out to be exactly what we thought it was going to be, very high intensity. And Aaron Judge, he's starting to read that a little bit. My little joke in my head about that is like, well, the one World Series he played in, he probably didn't really give much, Yankees fans to cheer about, especially Freddie Freeman. It seemed like the Yankees were trailing every single game of that series, except for, the game they won at Yankee Stadium to, force the extra game. And then also, game one where they were leading for most of the time. So, yeah, I think you got to kind of put some perspective into it. I'll always hold the World Series as a little bit higher standard, but you look at internationally, Japan, any of these Latin countries, they all are kind of in agreement where the World Baseball Classic, that's their thing. And we're all here in the US, we all grown up here, and it's like, well, MLB baseball's played here, so I'm always going to think the World Series is the top. But I feel like they're getting really, really close, especially, now more and more star players are willing to play. I remember the first couple one, even 2017. Look at that 2017 USA roster. You're seeing some guys on there like, well, they were good, maybe Hall of Good players, but they're not, Hall of Fame worthy players. Where now you're starting to really see, the best of the best playing, and I think that brings out a lot more emotion.
Thanks. I'm kind of glad to see it kind of turn out this way these last couple of weeks because Anthony, you and I have been talking about the WBC almost every week for like a year. And I thought, what if we're overhyping it and it just falls flat? But it turns out I think it was just, it met the moment and then some. So that was kind of cool. But another really cool piece of news that we got today, this morning, is that we learned our opening day starter for our next week, March 26th. It's going to be Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And fun fact about him, although might not relate to this exactly, but he is now the number 2 most followed MLB player on Instagram. And y'all can guess who number 1 is, but Yoshi is, I think there couldn't be no better opener. So Anthony, your thoughts on Yoshi opening it up for us this season?
The broadcast, the broadcast said it best when he opened the first Camelback game here in spring training. The guy who tossed the ball last in the World Series gets a chance to open it up for us here in spring training. Now he
Yeah.
gets the chance to open us here in the new season. Fully deserving. I feel like this is going to be a big year for him. I don't want to put my predictions on him yet because I'm afraid I might jinx him. But I'm excited to see how he capitalizes off the moment. And we said it last year after he had that rookie season, if you want to call it a rookie season. I know he's a professional in Japan, but his rookie season here in Major League Baseball, I feel like he really settled in. He had a routine about himself. He knew what to expect, what to go forward. And every time he took the mound last year, we always would text like, "Hey, there's a chance he might do something special." And he came close a very few times. So for me, I think it's kind of just like a cap of or a send off. We send off Kershaw, and we have our new ace going forward, which is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And no better way to give him the honor of opening up the season for us as we present the new rings and new jerseys and all the fun stuff that comes with day one of baseball.
Yeah, and like Kershaw, I think he's the first pitcher to start consecutive opening days since I guess Kershaw did it in what I think you wrote this, Cody, 2011, 2018. So that's something to be said because a torch is kind of literally being passed on. You kind of feel it now with Yoshi. But do you think Cody he'll put together his Cy Young campaign this year for us?
Yeah, I think last season was a good, next step in his career, especially joining the MLB side of things. We've already seen he's pretty much accomplished everything that he could in Japan. So he made the next step, got the largest contract for a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball history without even throwing a pitch here. And, he was pretty much put on the spotlight right away, not just because of the team he joined, but because of that contract that he did sign. So any type of failure that happened right away, which we saw, in the first game in Seoul, Korea, he ended up getting flamed for it. And then he misses almost more than half the season in his rookie year. But then once, the lights are brightest and in October, he pitches his best games as a Dodger. And, we remember that. And then he takes the next step last year. Obviously, in the postseason, we know what he did. All those starts minus the one against the Phillies in the division series. He was pretty much lights out, wins the World Series MVP, comes out of the bullpen on 0 days rest, and the rest is history. So he is the quote unquote ace now, and it's refreshing to see because the Dodgers haven't really had a quote unquote number one guy consistently. Like, Bueller seemed like he was going to be the guy, and then he ended up battling injuries. Julio, even before all of, the off the field issues, he's kind of had inconsistencies with his performance as well. And then, you throw in some other guys randomly in there that have gotten opening day nods as well. Dustin May started in the COVID shortened year. You had Hyun-Jin Ryu start a year. And then, now we're starting to get some consistency with Yamamoto getting the bump. And he came to camp ready. He was already prepared for the WBC. Fortunately for the Dodgers, they didn't need him, to go more than just those two to three starts that he made over there in Japan. And now he can come back, get another week and a half of rest, and then, start that game against the Diamondbacks to kick off the season. And I think load management's going to be a thing, but, he looked really good last year. 30 starts, 12-8, ERA under 3, and finished third in Cy Young voting. If he can take the next step, then we're talking about a bona fide Cy Young contender, especially in the National League where there's a lot of good pitchers like Christopher Sanchez and Paul Skeens, who won the award last year. So best of the best always want to continue to get better. And I think Yamamoto's in for a really big year this upcoming season. But it'll be curious to see how the Dodgers manage his workload, Blake Snell's workload, who's already been slow played, Tyler Glass now, all these other guys, because there are so many pitchers in this organization that could be starting or, have a more bigger role than they currently have with the Dodgers. And that's just something that we're fortunately lucky enough to have.
So lucky, but then I'm afraid like 2 to 3 months in, we're going to get that, flurry of news where we have no pitchers suddenly. So I hope they kind of play it careful. I think that they will. But yeah, it's going to be Yamamoto against Zach Gallen for because we're playing the Diamondbacks on opening day. This one will be there. Anthony, I don't know what your first game's going to be. Are you going to ring night, or what's your first game so far going to be? What's the plan?
I honestly don't know. The Houston ordeal has taken a lot out of a wind out of my sails financially that I think I'm not going until like April 10th at least. Because I think that's that is my dad's birthday, but I want to see if I can convince him to go to that Shohei greatest game bobblehead. That's kind of like the game I have circled right now, April 10th.
I'm gonna have to find you that day because you have a hat for me from the WBC. So.
Yeah, I do actually. I'm like staring at it. I don't want to go off camera and have it, but yeah, I do have it. Again, I had so much fun at the WBC, but I also looked at my bank account when I landed Tuesday afternoon, and I was like, oh, I have to just work for the rest like of the month basically. But it's worth it. These are memories that I would rather tell like 20, 30 years from now. Like, hey, like I went to go see Paul Skeens pitch for Team USA, and he absolutely shoved, and like one of the greatest like games I've ever seen. It's definitely not the greatest game I've ever seen, but like the atmosphere there made it feel like, wow, this is like the most important game probably ever. So I don't know. April 10th, at least for me, is kind of like the date I have kind of circled right now. Like this might be game one for me.
Noted. I'm going to write that for us to kind of cross paths there. Hopefully, if I go that day. Yeah, and Cody, we got to get you to the stadium because you haven't been here in a while, and so we get you out to LA and see one of these awesome games. So let us know when that'll happen. We'll take up a fund for you if we have to. Super chats, guys. We'll do it. But yeah. I want to know who's going to be the opening day, who's going to throw out the first pitch. There's been chatter. I mean, wouldn't it make sense, Cody, for it to be Kershaw? I know he'll be there for ring night.
Yeah, it makes sense. Stars kind of the line for that to happen. If you're looking at the schedule time frames, Dodgers do have the first game on NBC. It's at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 my time. So kind of prime time action for the start of a new era in terms of baseball coverage. Very excited for NBC to get it because if you've ever watched any other football coverage. They do a really good job at content there. So, and Kershaw is part of that network now. Kind of hasn't been really confirmed what his role is entirely in terms of how much he's going to be doing it. If it's going to be more on field, if he's just going to be recording in a booth and, at his home on the laptop, something along those lines. But I imagine he will be there at Dodger Stadium to not only one, see the banner raise, not only two, get his ring, but also probably to join some of those festivities out on the field as well. So, I mean, what better way to kind of kick off the season than celebrate, arguably the one of the greatest Dodgers of all time.
Oh, he is. And yeah, and the field will have a new name. So let's talk about that because I asked you fellas to give me the proper pronunciation and I got 80 different answers. So I'm going to practice. UNIQLO Field is what it's going to be called. Is that correct, Anthony? UNIQLO?
I'm gonna stick with Uniqlo. We're just gonna be butchering this for the foreseeable future.
Learn it. Yeah, so it's going to replace the field name is going to be Uniqlo, but Dodger Stadium itself is not going to change. It's still going to be called Dodger Stadium. That came per Katie Wu yesterday. Yeah, Cody, thoughts? Because I mean, there's been a lot of talk over the last several years about the naming rights for the stadium or how that's going to all shake out. So, what do you think of Uniqlo?
Yeah, everything's sponsored by something now. That's kind of the way everything in sports is kind of gone. It all started with, the NBA and some other sports where they started incorporating more jersey sponsorships for the ad just to get extra revenue. And for the Dodgers, they are very smart. They want to get that extra change. And they've kind of have been, taking advantage of the Shohei Ohtani market. So why not just get one of the biggest, clothing retailers in Japan and in Asia, essentially. So, and they're making their way over here to the States because, you mentioned they're in LA for you guys. They're also over here in my tiny state of Delaware. So clearly they're doing something financially right. I'm glad the Dodgers aren't doing anything dramatic like changing the entire name. I knew they weren't ever going to do that anyway because I think the ownership group understands the historical significance not only just of their franchise but of also the things that are involved with that franchise, like the stadium, the logos, the jerseys, which even with them incorporating an ad patch, they kind of went with the best one, saying, let's just put the ownership group on there. And that kind of makes sense in a way where it's like that's what most fans are kind of going to be okay with, especially for a jersey purist like me. I don't really like any of these other flashy things unless it's a postseason logo or a World Series logo or, a memorial patch for, a past player that passed away or someone that's getting their jersey retired along those lines. So I think they did a good job. They haven't officially announced anything yet, but it seems like this is kind of going to be the way they announce it and how they'll pronounce the stadium name in the future. I imagine they'll probably say something before opening day, and then once opening day hits, that's a new era of Dodger Stadium. So it'll be exciting to see what they do. Maybe they do some partnerships with clothing. I mean, maybe they can get a couple extra dollars from me.
While we're on it, there were some leaks about what the jerseys were going to look like, or there's going to be some kind of like an alternate blue jersey or a gold program jersey for 2026. You guys probably are more familiar with MLB The Show than I am, but Anthony, have you seen what they're possibly going to look like and your thoughts on that?
I am familiar with MLB The Show. I am not very good, but I am familiar with it. Yeah, well, the gold jerseys are kind of similar to the version that we had in 2020. 2021, the following season after that. And the hat is going to be, well, I can show this. It's going to be gold brim here. It's going to be LA logo in gold, and there's going to be two little stars here, kind of signifying the back-to-back championships. And then the blue one is still up to debate. I know Cody has more insight on the blue one because I kind of want to see it to believe it first. I hope it's an alternate, a home jersey or an away jersey because I really do like when they go full blue, like in spring training. I feel like they have to embrace that Dodger blue aspect to it, and no better other way than like we were discussing this earlier last week. I feel like the Sunday day game, kind of getaway game, is kind of the perfect time to display your blue jerseys. But I think Cody will have more info on that than me.
Yes, Cody, jersey purist, as you call yourself. What were your thoughts when you saw that?
Yeah, highly debatable is correct with the blue alternate. It's kind of, you look at the Nike rule, which is the 4+1, the plus one being the City Connect. So really, a team can only have 4 standard jerseys that they wear in a year, and the Dodgers already have a few. So they have the obviously the home whites that they wear, and then they have 2 road uniforms. So, I'm not sure everybody I've asked about it because they do have a blue uniform right now. So when they wear before games, whether it's home or away, and the ones they wear in spring training, which is the exact same thing. Dodgers inscription across the chest. It's just white. All the colors are inverted. So I'm not sure if that counts towards the rule. If it does, then their current jersey rotation is full, and these potentially leaked jerseys wouldn't be, eligible to be worn by the team. I always thought when I saw the original listing when it was posted on the Dodgers subreddit from Korea Fanatics, that it was going to be something that like the black alternate Dodgers jersey that they sell online as well, that you buy, where it's still, licensed by Nike. It looks exactly like the same, same design and everything. It's just a different color. But these ones were listed in MLB The Show as an alternate jersey, so kind of take it with what you will. The Dodgers haven't announced anything. I do think it would be nice to wear a blue uniform. I've kind of been asking for that for a couple of years now. Does make sense, like Anthony said, make it a Sunday getaway jersey, whether it maybe if it's home or on the road. I imagine they'll probably do it for home games, and then Saturday games would be your City Connect Saturdays, and then the rest of them will be your just regular whites. The one jersey that doesn't apply to the rule is the gold jerseys that we just mentioned, because it's a special event item, so they don't have to go into that whole, uniform rule debacle with Nike. It's only there for that, those 2 or 3 games that they're going to wear them against the D-backs. So we'll see what happens. It'll be cool. It'll be a nice another jersey to add to the collection. But we'll see what happens with it.
I just buy what's over there. My last one was I did buy the City Connect. Didn't think I was going to like it till I saw it up close, and actually did like it. But I will admit, it's kind of on a little more on the feminine side with the funfetti. But I do
They
have
grew on
that.
me. Everyone hated them when they first came out, and I like the hat. I wear that hat a lot, but the
Yeah.
Pop-Tart look took a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I think both iterations of the City Connect were like okay. If I had to pick one over the other, I'd probably pick the first one, just because I do like that blue look. But I don't know, I guess they were going with something a little different in the second one.
I'll put you both on the spot. I'll start with you, Anthony. So which player are you going to get as a jersey name next? I'm getting Yamamoto. I want his this year.
Oh, I heavily debated Yamamoto, but I feel like that might sell out before I even get a chance to like even log on to MLB The Shop. So I think I might actually get Kershaw, just because I don't have his jersey, and I think the gold jersey would kind of play well and kind of like solidify if they do have it on sale, and I don't have to like personalize and make my own. I'm pretty sure Kershaw will be one of the options. So the Kershaw jersey, and then I think later on in the year, if the blue jersey does end up coming to fruition and they actually do sell it, I think I might get a Mookie Betts blue jersey. Kind of like the 2 jerseys I get this year. I can't keep buying jerseys. Like I said, I bought 3 jerseys for the WBC, and it's too expensive. But I think I'm gonna have to get that gold one, and I'm gonna hold off and wait to like the very end of the season to finally buy that Mookie jersey as well too.
Nice. Cody, what are you buying?
I keep telling myself the next one I'll buy is Will Smith. I feel like it's like the one underrated player. You don't really see his jersey worn much, but he locked down for the long haul. I always say if you're going to buy jerseys, you got to either get players that played for a long time for your team that are just like generational talents, or you have to get the guy that's got a guaranteed contract. And you got Yamamoto, you got Otani, you got Betts. Will Smith seems like the next logical guy. Maybe Max Muncy, just because it seems like he's going to end his career here as well. And he's been, one of the best Dodgers over this run. Look at the postseason stats, all that stuff. So, not sure if I'll get the gold or the blue. I'm not. Kind of want to get a road gray. They look better in person than they do like when you look at them online. So, plus, I'm usually an away fan anyway, traveling on the East Coast whenever they come here. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what I get next time.
Yeah, I like the jerseys a lot. I have all the colors, but I rarely wear my white because I'm always afraid I'll spill something on it. But my white are the nicest ones. But so I'll probably get a blue or a gray. We'll see. But yeah, I want to talk about some news from today. Some of the players that we have been used to seeing, Anthony, in spring training. We've been talking a lot about our young studs. They got reassigned to minor league camp, and we knew that was coming because they just wanted an extended look at some of the players that they might be considering for a little bit of a bigger role either this year or next season. But today, players including Paul Gervais, Cole Irving, Ryder Ryan, Zaire Hope, our boy, and James Tibbs, oh my God, and Zach Earhart are now going to be at minor league camp. But did any of those kind of just make you go, wow, we've got some studs coming up down the line?
Well, Ryan looked good yesterday in the game that I watched. It was kind of funny to see like his what was his name? River Ryan pitch first and then the other Ryan. It's kind
Yeah.
of confusing. It was kind of impressive to see him go. So he's kind of one guy. And again, our outfield prospects, Tibbs kind of was the guy that's like stood out as well. Too. I wouldn't be surprised if like in August or late September they kind of give him some run. If he performs well in minor leagues, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the call up. But a lot of these guys, it's like they're just waiting on an opportunity, but unfortunately the team is very loaded that opportunity might not come this season. It might be next season, or it might not even be on this team at all. They might just be a trade chip going forward for a potential bigger not prospect, a player that we just don't know about yet. So for spring training, I think it was a success for a lot of these guys. Now there's a lot of guys who kind of burnt stock that I won't mention, but first guy that comes to mind is kind of a Ryan Ward. Ryan Ward, we kind of had that discussion early on during the offseason, like, oh man, they kept him around. This might be a big season for him, and it just wasn't the same. Another guy who's a veteran guy who struggled today. I didn't watch the game today, but Cody kind of gave us updates. Blake Trinan kind of like, I thought this was going to be a big bounce back season for him. It doesn't look like that's going to be it for him. We'll see. Maybe he performs in the regular season, but usually spring training kind of a telltale sign. Like, yeah, he probably doesn't have it anymore. But I don't know. I don't want to jump to conclusions now. I kind of want to see how he is at the first couple weeks of the season. If it's still trending the same way, it kind of might be time to like say some unfortunate goodbyes and kind of say like, look, man, like you did a lot for us, but it's kind of time to like say goodbye. I know those are conversations that are probably thinking about right now, but for these other young guys, there's not much else I can say, but just have to be patient and wait their turn, basically.
Yeah, it went off the rails today. It was 24-9. It's a spring training game, but yeah, Cody, I think you said something about trying it in our group chat, and I was getting concerned because he had a bad outing, good outing, bad out. I'm just a little bit, kind of checking out of the Blake Trinan experience. What do you think?
Yeah, Dave Roberts is too. I mean, if you look
Mhm.
at the post game, report from that game where, it's up on the YouTube channel now as well, where Dave Roberts just doesn't seem like very confident in Trinan. He doesn't feel like Trinan's confident in his stuff as well. Has been more inconsistent than consistent as of late. And even if the arm feels good, the velocity looks good, but some of these other pitches, if you're throwing them well, but you're throwing them for balls, at the end of the day, those aren't going to get results done. And clearly, that seems to be the biggest issue. He's falling behind in accounts very early. He's not getting swings and misses, especially if the slider or the slurve is, his bread and butter out pitch. If it's a ball all the way and it's just going to become more of a ball as it cuts, those big league hitters, even minor league hitters, aren't going to hit him because, the Brewers, by the time Trina got in the game, the Brewers had a lot of, minor league, depth guys that were in this game that ended up scoring a lot of these runs. So, um, just credit to them. Hopefully, Trinan can figure it out over the next, what are we like 10 days away from opening day by the time this episode comes out, less than 10 days. So, realistically, he's probably only get like 2 or 3 more appearances. That's kind of asking a lot for him to improve tremendously. So, and we've seen the Dodgers pitching. They have a lot of pitchers that can come up and eat innings, whether in the bullpen or the starting rotation. So, next man up, that's going to happen. The Dodgers have made some tough decisions over the last 2 years, especially for veteran players like Chris Taylor, Austin Barnes. If they can cut, eat money, and release you and make and have you go on your own way, they will do it if it's a benefit to the team. And right now, Trinan just doesn't look like he's going to help it out. I'm not going to lose faith completely. We'll see what it goes over the first month of the regular season, but yeah, it hasn't been pretty. But we're getting a little bit more clarity on what the opening day roster is going to look like. There weren't really many holes that the Dodgers or question marks in terms of, well, could this guy play? Could that guy play? Once you get some injuries coming along in there, like Blake Snell, Gavin Stone, Tommy Edman, you get a few spots here and there, and that's where you get guys like Espinal, stepping up big to kind of make the team pretty much right now. Hey, Sung Kim's looks good. Didn't really look good in the WBC, but I imagine he's still going to break camp with the team as well, kind of filling in at second base with Rojas. So it's getting exciting, kind of to narrow everything down and see what team we're going to look at on the field, for that game one.
It's coming together. We're starting to see it. And what are the injury updates, Cody? Because there was a number of things that we learned in the last several days.
Yeah, a lot of injury updates. Probably the big one is Blake Snell. I would say is the whole story with him at camp is like, is he going to return in the first half of the season, the first 2 months of the season? He comes into camp barely throwing, only throwing like light catch play, 60 to 90 feet. He just recently started throwing bullpen sessions again. The first one that he threw early last week, standing catcher, like 10, 15 pitches. Then a couple days later, traditional bullpen, catcher squatted down. He's throwing some pitches off the mound. And, he jokingly said late April. I imagine the Dodgers going to say, you know what? Why don't we shoot for mid or late May? Because we want you from, June to October. And hell, if you need a break in between, we'll give you that as well. We have enough depth. The other one that it kind of surprised me as well was Kike Hernandez, who, he's been going back and forth between, Puerto Rico and the WBC and then coming back to Dodger camp. He's kind of projected to be activated off the 60-day IL right when those 60 days are over, which I believe is May 24th. So get another Dodgers veteran utility guy back. And then Gavin Stone is going to start throwing again this week. But I also think the big one is Ohtani, where he was away at the WBC, didn't really pitch in any games in the Cactus League. They're saying, Dave Roberts is saying that it's only going to be 3 to 4 innings to start the year. So kind of could change the Dodgers pitching plans in terms of who they put in the bullpen. Do we see Justin Robleski stay in the bullpen, Emmett Sheehan stay in the bullpen to kind of piggyback off of, Ohtani on days that he's not going to go more than 3 innings. So
Right.
those are things the Dodgers are going to definitely have to consider, as they make more and more roster cuts.
And Anthony, you like a Sheehan piggyback off Otani. That seemed to work well last year. Or do you
Yeah,
think
I
there's
do love it. I still love the idea now, especially considering that again we play for September and October. So a lot of these guys, I think for Blake Snell, it's frustrating that he's being slow played. But if you look at his numbers the second half of the season, he's one of the big reasons why we ended up winning the World Championship anyway. And especially his performances in the playoffs, where he just dominated Philadelphia, dominated Milwaukee. He kind of banged around a little bit, but he was able to pitch in multiple games in that World Series to kind of close out the deal. So for me, I kind of look at it as like, okay, I guess April is just going to be an extended spring training for a lot of these guys. And that's what fans should kind of look forward to it as, okay, the guys are being slow played. We'll kind of like see what these young arms have. We kind of got a little taste of it last year when they kind of emerged as bullpen options. And now we get to see them kind of like solidify themselves as potential starters for us. So I'm excited. I do think Sheehan is going to be a piggyback option. Robleski kind of got beat up in his last start, so we'll kind of see where he's at. I kind of do like him in that bullpen scenario, just in case you need to eat a couple innings and stuff like that. He can go the distance for you, like 2, 3 innings at most. Um, I'm really interested to see what they do with a River Ryan, just because he's kind of making the case of like he might have to be up here with the big team to start the season because he's been tearing it up down here in spring training. But I don't know. That's kind of the only name where I'm like, do you start him up here with the big team, or do you send him down to AAA to kind of get some more starts and stuff underneath him? But again, we discussed this in the prior episode. They might just like Emmett Sheehan him like what they did to him last year. Like, okay, you're gonna go down to the minors for a start, and then we're gonna bring you back up to the big team, kind of just to keep you in your regular routine, and you don't have to like worry about like, well, am I starting today? No, you're not starting today. You're just gonna have to sit down and watch the rest of the game, stuff like that. So he's the only name where it kind of sticks out to me. Like, okay, what's the plan for him? Because I feel like everyone else kind of has a like a plan outlined, but for him, nothing's really solidified.
We'll learn soon. I think that's kind of all being hashed out behind the scenes. But if anything, we learned the last couple of years that the front office and Roberts, they know that they're going to have to piece this together and like kind of with their magic and with the pitching staff and kind of like the way that's been so topsy-turvy the last few years. I trust them that they'll know how to get it done and make sure that everyone's right in place for September and October. At least that's my hope. But I want to kind of turn to some kind of heart attack news that we all kind of saw today. Something weird that was tweeted and then it was deleted. And I thought it was kind of funny because everyone was about to like lose their shit when they thought that our World Series hero Miguel Rojas was going to be suspended for 80 games. But I guess it's Evan Drellich. He had a quick, erroneous report, took it down, did apologize, saying that Miguel Rojas, this is not true, but he said that Miguel Rojas was going to be suspended for 80 games for use of a banned substance. But it was actually Johan Rojas of the Phillies that this applied to. And really just kind of makes you think of the importance of reporting accuracy and integrity. Right, Cody?
Yeah, it was
Mhm.
kind of a shock, and I kind of thought I should have known it because the talk of Johan Rojas being suspended has kind of been the thing around here around Philly, and because he's a guy that should be their starting center fielder, hasn't really worked out, and then you get popped for PEDs when you hit like 220 the year prior. Not a good look for him. So kind of his name was already in the back of my head, and then when I see Drellich put out Miguel Rojas, I said, hold up, what are we doing here? These two names aren't the same at all. I don't know how you get those mixed up and put it out there, especially for Miggy, because it's like you start to go through the process with like, I could see why probably he's getting up there in age. Maybe he needed something to kind of keep playing, but I was like, no, he doesn't really strike me as that guy that would, cheat the game, especially from what he said about other players, that disrespect the game or and other facets and all that stuff. So he doesn't strike me as a profar, like getting popped for PED. So then to kind of retract and just put out like just a short tweet saying that, yes, I put out the wrong name and that's it. That's kind of even more disrespectful because I feel like if you're Miguel, you're kind of like, what the hell, man? Now my name's out there, like defamation on my character right there. So because people were really quick to judge, Blue Jays fans were ready to kind of be like, I knew he was a
Knew
fraud,
it.
that the home run wasn't anything.
They
And
did.
then you got other Dodger haters out there that are kind of just like, look at them, look at this golden franchise. You got Otani with the gambling thing. Now we got Rojas with the PEDs. Ended up not being anything at all. So wondering what Rojas's emotions were over the past, couple hours.
I mean, it kind of gave me that things because thinking back to the Blue Jays a couple years ago when JP Hornstrip put that, erroneous report out that Rotani was on his way to Toronto to sign with them, blah, blah, blah. And they were so sure. Ended up being, a crock of what. But I feel like there's just no coming back from that. When you just put your name on something, you're supposed to have journalistic integrity, and you get something wrong like that, that could possibly be such like a, in this case, it could slander, Miguel Rojas's character. I don't know, Anthony, what were your thoughts when you saw that today? It was up and it was down. So weird.
So I actually didn't see the tweet. I was reacting to like the text message train. I think producer Raj was like, "Did you see that tweet?" So I
Yeah.
had no idea what was going on. So when I asked what happened, and I saw Rojas is got popped for steroids, my heart immediately kind of like sank. I'm like, what? Miguel Rojas? Like the first thing that came to mind too was like the
Yeah.
first question was like, why? It's his last season in Major League Baseball, and like, why are you deciding to do steroids now? And then immediately, because I'm around a lot of Dodger fans at work, we started thinking like, oh man, here we go. We're gonna start hearing the like,
Mhm.
oh, your championship it needs an asterisk because the guy who hit the game winning, well, he didn't hit the game winning home run, but the home run to force extra innings got popped for steroids. And sure enough, like within like a few minutes of just panic, we got the notification actually that like, oh hey, it's actually a different Rojas who got popped. So like full panic mode went into it, and again, it didn't make sense like why Miguel Rojas in his last season in Major League Baseball and professional baseball would get popped for steroids. He wants to pursue a career in player development, whether it's coaching or just like behind the scenes and stuff like that. So it's not a good look if you have a player development coach who got popped for steroids. What exactly are you trying to preach to the young guys? Like, hey, like I know like I had a great career, but like in the last season, I really felt like I had the chance of like breaking Aaron Judge's individual home run record in one season, and I decided to take steroids for it. So for me, it didn't make sense at all. I feel like a bigger apology is needed than just like one single tweet, whether he releases a video or he reaches out to Miguel Rojas and apologizes. I guess we'll just never know. But yeah, this is what happens when you try to be first. A lot of reporters have kind of fallen prone to it. Like they try to be first. I remember the most popular one was Arson Judge is going to the Giants is another example of like you just want to be first because you want all the impressions and stuff like that. You want people flooding to you. You want to like be on ESPN or whatever it is, kind of breaking the news and stuff like that. And this is an example of when like being first kind of backfires because that's such a big like mistake. It's like not even like Miguel is nowhere near the first name Johan Rojas. So it's kind of like if the only way it would be a mistake is like if you confuse the Brian and a Brian because it's just like misspelling. Like, hey, this Brian spells his name with a Y, and that
Right?
Brian spells his name with an I. I can see that happening. Maybe like, okay, that's an honest mistake, but this is not an honest mistake at all.
No, and we do know, at least, we're Dodger fans, so we follow super close. Miguel Rojas and his character are all kind of setting up for the second half of his career. It doesn't end here. We know that he's been on, Jazz Chisholm's case. We know that he has always kind of looked at what you do, behind the scenes and off the field speaks to what happens on the field. That's kind of his, guiding force. And yeah, he does want to coach. He does want to be a part of the Dodgers franchise in some capacity in the coming years. Who knows what that'll be specifically? But I just kind of when it just shocked me, and then I thought, oh my God, was that home run bullshit? It made me think, oh my God, is this what's going to happen to the news cycle now if this is real? Thank God it was retracted. But yeah, I do agree that it's kind of a little too big to just say, oops, sorry, because that's really something big against his name. Thank God it wasn't real. But yeah, speaking of coaching, it looks like our coaching staff, Cody, is going to be in place with no changes for the coming season, right?
Yeah, everything's good to go in Dodger land. Dave Roberts leading the charge for his 11th season. Obviously, signed that extension, record breaking for a manager last year. So this is going to be the first year of that new 4-year deal. And he's bringing everybody back along for the ride. We got all the coaches that kind of we're all familiar with, that we've had communication with, and they do a really good job. Dodgers have one of the most advanced coaching, development, and kind of planning, team in the sport, and that's the reason why they're one of the best in the league right now. So the Dodgers officially, announced that everybody's back along for the ride. They, a couple weeks back, they announced the minor league coaching staff, and not much change for that as well. So pretty much top to bottom throughout the organization, they're already set for 2026 to be the three-peat year.
Oh my God, I love that. I can't wait to see how that all shakes out. It's going to start sooner than later. But yeah, one of our coach's sons hit a home run against us today. So we were talking about him last week, Brady Evil. He's on the Milwaukee Brewers and he looks really good. But then when you think about his own development, he's been kind of semi with the Dodgers, kind of training behind the scenes with all of our all-stars and our players for so long. It kind of doesn't, surprise me at all that he would already be showing a lot of promise. So congratulations to Dean. I'm sure he's somewhere with a big smile on his face as he's getting ready to have the final game tomorrow. But yeah, that kind of brings the end of my notes. Anthony, what are your final thoughts as we get ready to close the show?
Final thoughts. I hope tomorrow's game is electric because I feel this season is going to be electric. So it's kind of a good lead into a great new baseball season that we have going forward here in 9 days by the time this episode drops.
Oh God, so exciting. And yeah, so Cody, tell everyone where they can find your articles because you haven't been on our show for a minute, and then kind of your final thoughts as we close out.
Yeah, like you plugged at the beginning of the episode, DodgersBeat.com. That's where we got all the content coming up. Me and Steve have been kind of being content heavy recently, all the pregame, postgame, obviously all the news that's coming out from camp as we get closer to opening day. So obviously on X right there, you can see the handle. So always active on there as well. So we're getting really, really close to kind of the very fun, interesting part of the season. First, final checkbox is kind of this game that's going to, be between the U.S. and Venezuela for the WBC championship. So very excited for that.
Yes, and don't forget to check out Cody and Vince on Talking Blue this week so they can bring you all the latest updates. We've got producer Roger over in Arizona right now at Camelback Ranch to get all the interviews and the latest footage for you. So check that out on the Bleed Lows podcast YouTube channel. And like Cody said, don't forget to check out our handles. You can find me, Drea, on Instagram and X at RivingQueen1958. You can find Cody on X at SnavelyCody6. And you can find Anthony on Instagram and X at AnthonyAcosta_. And until the next big thing happens, let's go Dodgers.